Now this section of the presentation is going to dive more into the elements that you need to include in a master's thesis research proposal. So some of the things you'll need to include in your thesis proposal would be a cover page, the table of contents, your chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3, as well as a timeline for completing the work, your references of the sources you cited in the text, and your appendices. I'm going to break down these elements individually with the exception of chapter 2, which is in a different presentation, chapter 3, which is in a different presentation, and the fact that we've already gone through references that follow the American Psychological Association's or APA style. For your cover page, our Utah State University's School of Graduate Studies provides you a template that you need to use. For your thesis proposal, you actually need to edit this document as it's seen on this computer screen because it says right now a thesis submitted in partial fulfillment. Well, you're not submitting a thesis, you're submitting a thesis proposal. So you just need to adjust that verbiage to say that as thesis proposal submitted in partial fulfillment of the requirements of the degree. You can download this Word file at USU's graduate school website because it's the most helpful way to know your title pages, your cover pages, your table of contents, your list of figures, your list of tables, your appendices, your public abstract, your abstract, your acknowledgments. I mean, it truly provides the framework for the front matter of your thesis. It can save you a great deal of time when it comes to formatting. I also need you to spend some time thinking about the title of your thesis proposal. This would be the first thing people will see when reading your work. And so when you're writing it, first off, use the chapter title style that's in chapter titles for Microsoft Word. And the style is 12-point font, Times New Roman, double space, centered in all uppercase letters. When you think about titles for your thesis proposal, look at keywords or phrases that would give a very concise, clear picture of what it is you're researching. It should allow bibliographers to easily index your study so that people can find your projects later on, because this will most likely be the title you use for your actual master's thesis that gets published in a library's database. Many a times you need to indicate the major variables you're studying, the nature of your research, whether it's a descriptive study, a correlational study, an experimental study, and who the target population is for your research. But we like to avoid words that are just very vague and boring, like a study of, an investigation of, a survey of. You can develop ways to write more engaging thesis titles, and I want to share with you what are some examples of thesis titles I've come across in our different disciplines. So here are a few that I've come across that have been published in my discipline in agricultural communications, as well as in the disciplines of family consumer science education, extension education, and agricultural education. We have an audience-focused approach to framing climate change communication in agriculture. Evaluating Utah 4-H STEM curricula used to promote STEM and Utah 4-H programs. Family and Consumer Sciences Teacher Needs Assessment of a STEM-enhanced food and nutrition science curriculum. And lastly, the use of Family and Consumer Sciences County Extension faculty to provide emergency preparedness education in the western region of the United States. Now, there are pros and cons to all of these different titles, clearly. And so you're going to just need to find titles that best show the variables that you studied, the population you studied, and how you've studied the topic. And one recommendation I have is brainstorm several titles, and then you can share them with your thesis committee chair and see what that person thinks would be the most appropriate title. That way you have a brainstorming point and you know what they're thinking and what the committee might approve for a thesis title. You also need to remember to include a table of contents. A table template is provided to you in Microsoft Word that is from the USU's graduate school website. And the detailed table of contents needs to list each of the sections of your chapter, and it's going to just really help locate all the categories of the information easily. I like to actually hyperlink each of the sections so that it takes you right to the page in the PDF file and it's easy to find the information. It's all about making it easy for the reader, not necessarily for you. So take that extra time and create those hyperlinks and make it so it's functional, navigable, and easy to read. You'll also need to think about a timeline. This is a unique piece of a master's thesis proposal that is not actually included in a master's thesis. So you want to provide a timeline that lists the order of all the major steps that you need to take to have the time needed for each step. And if you look here, this is a 2-semester project. You really cannot get a master's thesis done with a proposal, defense, data collection, analysis, writing, and thesis defense in a semester. It's usually a year, 2 quarters, or 2 semesters. So here's a list of tasks that one of my graduate students had to complete in order to graduate this past May, in May 2017. And so it just helps you see all the little steps that need to be accomplished to finish the task. You also need to include appendices. This is supplemental information like forms for collecting information, a questionnaire if you're doing survey methodology, an interview guide if you're doing intensive interviews. If you're sending out an email or letter for the survey, you need to include all the contacts to the participants. And then if you're using any copyright materials, you have to have permission letters to publish those items in your thesis. So it's good to start early contacting them, gathering them, and making sure that they're part of the appendix in your thesis proposal.